What up, Scale? Welcome to Bar Vibes with Bryson Forth, giving out raw reactions and interacting with the masses. No subject is safe. You hear the people and the noises, but that's the point because without the people, what is the point? Embracing vibrations. First and foremost, I hope all you New Year, New Me people are still in the gym after week one of the new year. I know most of you aren't normally, and that's cool. That's fine. I get it. How the new year just brings this aura of what you feel like this is the restart. If you're not gonna do it, stay out of people's way that actually take this shit seriously, because I guarantee you're getting side eyes all over the place, and then after 2 weeks you're not even fucking there, and you're like, yeah, wasting my time letting you get a rep when I was just trying to get my gains. So be mindful. But anywho, it's the final week of the NFL season. It's locked in. Postseason is upon us. It's a bittersweet feeling, mostly for people, who do have teams that are in, and more so for people who don't have teams that are in, because now you got offseason to think about. It's a terrible feeling. I don't feel bad for you, so tell your team to be better. But anywho, we're going to get right into it. Eagles, Giants, let's go Birds. I know it wasn't pretty. I know it wasn't great. I know the Giants had their second, third practice squad in. Hey, listen, you play who you play. They could have played their starters. It has nothing to do with the organization as a whole. You go out there and you win. You win against the players that you're playing against. They only had one offensive touchdown. Jalen knocking a little bit of that rust off. That is totally natural. It was wild how Davis Webb, he actually looked pretty confident. I mean, again, that's like that. It's like that fight or flight thing where it's like either you go out there and ball, or you just going to lay down. And the Giants weren't going to lay down. I get it. It's a pride thing. You don't want to go out there and just lay an egg, especially in the last game of the season when you had a chance to make the playoffs just a couple weeks ago. So I get that. We got 3 players for the first time in a very long time. If I'm not mistaken, it's the first time. 3 players with 1,000 yards over in scrimmage yards. Miles, AJ, Devontae. Was no question. My man AJ Brown was 4 yards away from 1,500. That sucks. But he did get the receiving single season in his first season. The man is 25 years old. This is crazy. We could keep this core of offensive players together and make sure that the O-line stays straight. We're Gucci. I'll take the first round bye. I'll take the NFC East championship. And then we just gotta get right in these next 2 weeks, get these players healthy, and just make sure that they don't take their foot off the gas after losing those 2 games and thinking like, okay, yeah, this might be over. For the Giants, listen, I'm not even being biased. Dable might be up there for Coach of the Year. If they had made the playoffs, I'd have gave it to him. He'd have had it because it's the same roster, and yet they were in it. They were in the thick of things. They weren't going to go anywhere. So when people were like, oh, sorry, let me backtrack. They are in the playoffs. I don't know why I said that. That was dumb. They didn't have anything to play for. They were going to be 6th seed no matter what. That was weird. But so why would you risk? Yeah, if you think like a football fan, you would understand. At the end of the day, Eagles are number 1 seed. Playoffs have started. I hope they get better. Fly Eagles fly on the road to victory. I'm going to go in this order because there was a lot of games that just didn't mean shit. But this game, Bills-Patriots, again, team of destiny. And it's weird how that formulates. I'm glad to see that DeMar Hamlin's doing a lot better. And I heard that he got taken back to Buffalo, which is awesome because I know that that's where his family is and stuff like that. But this was like if you watch the game and then the opening kickoff is a fucking touchdown, you're like, oh, this is kind of why sometimes you might believe in a higher power, because that from going to the whole tragedy and them canceling the game and and they just high on emotion, and the first play is a touchdown. Wild. And then on the flip side of that, the Patriots weren't hearing none of that noise because they were in the game. They were actually up at some point in the second quarter. But then again, here we go. Destiny, and I do destiny because I know some people don't believe in that. But Bills just didn't give up. Josh Allen doing Josh Allen things, throwing the ball down the field, but Patriots didn't make it too easy. They did have some really, really costly turnovers. It's weird that, yes, the Bills did get the second seed, but if the Chiefs, we will talk about later briefly, if it's Bills Chiefs, they get a neutral site, and then I think in this whole grand scheme of things, they're forgetting about the fact that the Bengals also have to give a game. It's just weird, but the NFLPA and the front offices handled it, I think, the best that they could, because this is, again, something that they had never seen before. If the Bills aren't protecting Josh Allen in the playoffs, they're gonna have a problem because the man, he plays hero ball, and if he's gonna do that, they need to make sure that he is. Well, first of all, he needs to make sure that he's protecting himself, but more so, they're protecting him when he decides not to run out of the pocket. Patriots are trash. They just almost walked backwards into the playoffs, and they honestly didn't even want to. I know a few Patriots fans, and they were like, no, we don't give a shit about the playoffs, and I can understand why, because they were going to get shitted on if they had made the playoffs. So it is what it is. And the Bills are in the playoffs, Patriots are not. Lions, Packers. This was essentially a playoff game. The Lions and the Packers were both playing to get into the playoffs. Now, granted, the Lions needed help. Packers they just needed to win. And here we go with another game where Mr. Ayahuasca, Aaron Rodgers, is just not living up to his name, where you get an opportunity to just take over, put the team on your back, go win, get in the playoffs. And me personally, I think if they got in the playoffs, he's the kind of player who will ramp it up and make his team better when it counts. And nope, Lions said, fuck that bullshit. If we ain't in, y'all ain't in. They were bringing out the nasty plays. First of all, the one play they had where they threw a bubble screen, but then he pitched it back. That's a play where you're like, nope, we are here to fucking win. And I don't know what is to be said about Aaron Rodgers' future, but when the man tells you, when a guy comes up to you and asks you for your jersey and you go, no, I want to hold on to this one after decades of being in this organization, that means you want to hold on to it. And that's just speculation, because this is the last time you're going to be there. He can say what he wants. He can be as cryptic as he wants. He can lie through his teeth. That is what it is. The Lions, man, I'm telling you, I might know a Lions fan. If I do, you should be very, very confident if they go back into the season with this roster next year. Jared Goff does just enough to make sure that they're afloat. Their run game's awesome. They play for their coach, Dan Campbell. I've seen a lot of old takes expose things where like Dan Campbell's never gonna last. Hey man, look out for the Lions next year, especially if Aaron Rodgers is not in that division. Commanders, Cowboys. I'll give you the Jim Carrey laugh. So y'all, as in the Cowboys, went into this game with your starters against the Commanders with a backup to the backup quarterback, and you didn't score a touchdown. And you're going to the playoffs, and they're not. But you started your starters, all of them, play most of the game, if not all, and you got your asses handed to you. That is not how you want to go into a playoff game at all. I don't want to hear the excuses. Dak Prescott throws a fucking interception for the 7th game in a row. The man leads, tied for the league lead in interceptions, and he missed 5 games. Think about that. You let Sam Howell, a project from North Carolina, come out there and absolutely embarrass you. Commanders, yet another team, could have made the playoffs. They were like, no, fuck that. We're not going to let y'all win. And the Cowboys played like they weren't expecting to get a higher seed, because even if, if the Eagles had lost, the Niners would have got the seed. So they played like, we don't give a shit. But why start your starters? I don't know. Whatever. Either way, that's not how you want to walk into the playoffs. Commanders spanked that ass, and kudos to them. Browns, Steelers had an outside shot to make it. They handled their business. The Browns, Deshaun Watson, it's weird watching him, because it's like What are you showing us to warrant the fact that we just gave you $230 fucking million? I get it. The man hadn't played in 2 years. I really hope that he proves it just to justify the fact that he almost robbed them of their money. They still got Nick Chubb. They still have a really good core. Their offensive line's not great. It's not terrible. Amari Cooper, for me, he takes off games, which is kind of weird. But, I mean, the Steelers did everything they could. Mike Tomlin, again, escapes another year of not having a losing season. I don't know how he keeps doing it. They could have made the playoffs, but they didn't because Dolphins-Jets. Dolphins in the playoffs. Jets just squandered an opportunity to, honestly, not win the division, but they were balling. They were 7-3, and then he just fucking just blew up like a goddamn Acme package. The Jets come to the East next year, and we play them in New Jersey. And if they don't got a quarterback, they ain't got no shot. Shout out to Alex. We talked about this. Dolphins back in the playoffs. Is Tua coming back? We don't know. It wasn't like a bomb game. It was actually a very, very trash game. But the Dolphins handled their business. Is Tua coming back? Probably not. This seems like an opportunity for the Dolphins to either prove that, they should be here because of their defense, or they just missed their quarterback. I don't see them going forward, but we'll talk about that in another episode. Titans-Jags, another game where it was a playoff game. Jags win and they're in. Titans win, and it's like the Titans fell off a cliff, and then the Jags were climbing that cliff, and they made it to the top. Titans were holding, they were fighting hard at the beginning of the game. And Trevor Lawrence is literally showing you why he was the number 1 overall pick, along with the fact that Dougie P whispered in that man's ear, "Hey, man, you got this." And yet again, the Jaguars just show you they're scrappy. They can do it. They get a home playoff game in Duval. Shout out to my mom and Mr. Craig and my young boy BX. They get a playoff game, and that's big. I mean, it's been a while, 2017 with Blake Bortles, so kudos to the Jags. The Titans, they just fumbled the fucking entire 16 bags with this, and they have already fired a lot of their assistant coaches because this is not where it was headed. Mid-season, I was talking about the Titans in the middle of the season, like, the Titans gonna win this division. No. Jaguars said, hold my fucking beer. Not happening. Rams Seahawks. Another game that only mattered to one team. Rams, they were cooked. I mean, Sean McVay is thinking about leaving. He's already given his coaches opportunities to, have some interviews here and there because he's not sure if he's going to come back. Seahawks with a Pro Bowl Geno Smith. Think about that. If you watch football in the last decade and you think about Geno Smith, you're like, oh yeah, that backup guy. That man is in the Pro Bowl with the Seahawks. So Pete Carroll is I fucking told you so. Now they did get some help. That is okay. They took care of their business and they beat the Rams. It was a back and forth game. It was pretty close. But then Baker Mayfield showed up at the end and showed why he hadn't started for a team for more than 10 games this year. That thing, he threw a fucking duck at the end of the game. That shit was awful. And then Geno did what he did and drove his team down the field to at least get a field goal. And I'm not sure what the Seahawks are going to do. I would much rather see them than some of the other teams in the NFC East, us as in the Eagles. But, I mean, they make the playoffs, and that means a lot, especially in a division where, in the NFC West, where they thought that 3 teams were going to make it, and nope, that didn't happen. The Rams, the worst team after a Super Bowl win, I believe, in the Super Bowl era history. They have no picks. Their quarterback is still a little hurt. I don't know, man. We'll see. I don't even know if Sean McVay is going to be back, so who knows. Vikings, Bears. I knew that the Vikings were going to win this game, and they better have won this game. The biggest takeaway from this game that had nothing to do with the play or anything like that, because the Vikings were playing for practically nothing. They were going to be the 2 or the 3, and it's not really a big deal or drop-off. It was about the Bears getting the number 1 pick. They better had sent the Texans like $10,000. I don't know. Because if it wasn't for them, they wouldn't have the pick. And now you have a situation for the Bears where it's like, we don't technically need a quarterback. As long as Justin Fields is healthy next year and we can put some pieces around him, we're okay. And the only way you do that with the number 1 overall pick is be very, 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 very smart about what you do with that pick. Because whoever's offering, it better be monumental. Otherwise, we're just going to motherfuck you and say, fuck it, we'll take it, and you can't get shit. And then it's going to rock the entire draft. But I think they will trade it away for the right price, and I think that somebody out there is going to have the right price. As far as the Vikings go, the worst point differential for a 13-4 team in NFL history. They just don't know how to win big. They get into these holes. Not this game. They beat the Bears soundly. That was fine, and that was very expected. But going into the playoffs, you don't want that reputation where you are losing by a lot, and then all of a sudden it just blows up. It's happened. They got 4 losses, and go look at them all. Blown. They got 11 wins, less than 7 points. I mean, it shows resiliency, but it also shows you might not have the firepower that you thought. So, playoffs, different breed. Texans, Colts. Again, like I said, the Texans, Lovie Smith, former now head coach of the Texans, knew they're probably going to fire me after this game. So you know what? Fuck you, Texans. I'm going to go out and win this game just because I want to and just because I don't want you to have the first pick. The Colts, I don't know what the fuck they're doing. They can't get a quarterback to save their goddamn lives. I don't even know if see, now that's the thing. I think that they're a candidate to try to trade up. I don't know if they have the assets. I didn't really look into it. But they might be wanting to think about it. Yeah, because this whole plug-and-play quarterback thing is just not working. It's been a thing for them for the past 3 or 4 years. It's just not going to work. Texans, they're a scrappy team, and they didn't care. First of all, I don't know what the DB for the Colts was thinking. The man put his hands up like this. Football's this small. You might want to close your hands there, buddy boy. Either way, they converted a 4th and 20. Wow. Again, another throwaway game, and there was the next couple games throwaways. Chiefs, Raiders, this wasn't for anything. Chiefs already had this locked up. Raiders started Stidham again. They don't give a shit about Derek Carr. The Raiders do not. And the Chiefs just handle business. It was close in the beginning. Now it's just them, building, and then Chiefs just took off. The Chiefs are they're a machine. They are a machine, and rightfully so. They got the best quarterback in the league, arguably top 5. No, not arguably. Arguably top 3 head coaches in the league just based off of history. And, there's not much else to say. Stidham, he's not making a case to be a starter based on my eyes. But I think that they're not going to move on with Derek Carr. Like I said last episode, they're going to owe this man $40 million after February 1st. I don't think they want to do that, especially with the fact that they benched him the last 2 games of the year. Hate to see it. And now we get into the games where it's like Ravens, Bengals. Doesn't really mean much. I know Bengals fans are probably like, what about us when it comes to the whole canceling the game thing? And with the Ravens, are they going to start Lamar next week? Does he want to play? Does he want to be like, all right, well, I waited out this entire time. You guys made the playoffs without me, so do you need me now? Even if his knee is okay, even if he can play, they just gave Roquan Swift $100 million. If I'm Lamar Jackson, I've been sitting over here for weeks waiting for my bread. I took y'all to the playoffs. I got an MVP. Roquan Swift wasn't even on the roster like 6 weeks ago. So what is your priority here for real? And then you want me to go out there and play and possibly get hurt again? But it's the playoffs, so I don't know. It wasn't a spectacular game. It was a divisional game. I get it. Again, we're at the end of the season, so it really didn't mean anything as playoff seeding goes. They're going to play, and they're going to play again. It's just a matter of whether or not Lamar Jackson plays, and we shall see. Chargers, Broncos, who cares? Chargers lost. They weren't really playing for anything. Broncos are just trying to have some pride at the end of the year with their backups. My biggest concern for the Chargers is if they don't let Justin Herbert throw the ball deep. Like that's his best asset. He's got a fucking cannon, like a pirate ship cannon on his fucking shoulder. If they try to do this dink and dunk shit that they did all game versus the Broncos, it's not going to bode well for them in the playoffs. I promise you that. Because teams are not going to be afraid. Yeah, we can handle that. And the fact that the Broncos with the backup quarterback won by 3, you might want to change up your game plan. They're still very aggressive, the Chargers are, and they're going to need that going into the playoffs. But again, this is another game that really didn't mean anything. But it might have been one of those games where the Chargers didn't want to show their hand going into the playoffs, which I understand. It makes perfect sense. That's how I feel about a couple teams that were playing this week that knew they were going to be in playoffs that didn't want to like give away any game planning or anything like that, and that makes perfect sense. Bucks Falcons. Here we go again, Tom Brady with another fucking playoff berth. You can't keep this man away from the playoffs, even losing the game to the Falcons. I mean, Tom only played like a quarter and a half. I get it. I mean, the Falcons can finally say they beat Tom Brady, but I mean, it really didn't mean shit. And the Falcons had so many opportunities this year to take hold of this division, and none of them cared. The Panthers, they were on a roll for a little bit. They didn't give a shit, and they just let Tom have this. And I'm not taking. I mean, they only had one really good game, and that was last week. They could have given this division away to any of these teams. And yet, here we go again with Tom Brady getting in the motherfucking playoffs. In a home game at that. Mind you, Tom Brady has never lost to the Cowboys as a Patriot, as a Buccaneer. Never, never, never. Knock on them things. But I'm just saying, it is a thing. I'm not saying who I'm betting on. I'm not even saying if I'm betting the game. But it is a thing. They get a playoff home game against Dallas on a Monday night. You're talking about prime time. Tom? Okay, we'll see. And the most meaningless fucking game, I don't even want to talk about it. Cardinals-Niners. The biggest takeaway from this is that the Niners just jumped on them after they made it competitive, the Cardinals, but no. Kyler Murray gets his coach fired, Cliff Kingsbury, after 4 years. No clue why the man still had a job. And he just got extended last year, which is weird because now they owed him like $80 million, which is dumb. And now we go into the season not knowing who the Cardinals coach is going to be. So... yeah, I mean, this is what happens when you tell, the organization, hey, my quarterback needs to do his homework. I don't think he's going to be pretty happy with that, isn't Kyler Murray? I mean, they had a couple injuries, especially with Kyler. They didn't have D-Hop for the first 6 weeks, so I understand why the season just wasn't what they thought it was going to be. When a coach and a quarterback are not seeing eye to eye, when your quarterback is telling you to shut the fuck up, that's not good. Neither one of these teams really cared about this. Niners already knew that they were the number 2 seed, if not 1, so they were comfortable, and they still waxed them. So, kudos to them. That's it for the final week of Week 18. We're back into playoff mode. I'm considering doing, possibly having, talking to somebody whose team is in the playoffs just for a little bit to see how they feel going into a game. So I'm thinking about that. I'll figure that out. But in other news, and if you didn't see it, Georgia absolutely waxed TCU. And they are number 2 now in the national rankings. So you lose 65-7, but you went from 3-2 in the next week. Explain to me how that makes sense. TCU was 3 last week. They lose 65-7, and now they're number 2. They were a JV high school football team yesterday. They scored in the first quarter and never sniffed the fucking end zone. It was one of those games where, if you watch college football and you see the score at halftime is 30-10 or 28-7, and you're like, hey man, this team can come back. I've seen it before. Nope. Halftime, I was like, yeah, he can call it. Put the backups in. Stetson Bennett could sit on the sideline. Stetson Bennett the 4th. Excuse me, I didn't even expect you like that. He could sit on the sideline for the rest of the game, and the outcome will probably be the same. Got absolutely handled. My random thought was, it was just a very, very, very light thing. But when people ask you questions, as much as people are on their phones constantly, say you're on, you see a person on their phone and they're blah, blah, blah. Hey man, how many people live in fucking Michigan? And it's you could literally pull that up on your phone. Why would I know that? It's called Google. It's a thing. I don't know. It's a thing. And it's like, oh, you didn't know? All right, let me look it up. Why didn't you fucking do that from the beginning? You thought I just, okay. You know what? I'm not even gonna lie. I appreciate you for thinking that I had that random piece of information in my brain. So wild. Big ups to the first date. Stay focused and be great. Take a sip. Much love from the kid. Enjoy your day. Enjoy your life. Remember that real G's move in silence. BWBIV.com.